Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sharon Kugler, and I'm the University Chaplain here at Yale. And I am just so deeply honored to welcome you to Patel Chapel. We are so excited to have you with us today, and to be in the presence of Khenpo it's a gift. It's already felt that way. We've had a conversation downstairs. I think that you are in for an experience that you'll never forget, to be in the presence of a wise and gentle man. I would like to invite Professor Quintman to come forward, and he's going to introduce our speaker, and we're going to begin.
Thank you, Sharon. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Andrew Quintman. I'm a faculty member in the Department of Religious Studies, where I teach about the Buddhist traditions of Tibet and the Himalayas. And it really is a tremendous honor to have this opportunity to host such a highly acclaimed and revered Buddhist teacher as Khenpo Sodargye. Khenpo Sodargye was born in the eastern region of Tibet, known as Kham, and was ordained in 1985 at the renowned Lorong Sertar Buddhist Institute, perhaps the largest Buddhist academy of its kind in the world, which itself is also located in Kham, in the present-day Sichuan province of the PRC. He trained closely with Khenchen Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche, who himself was one of the great Buddhist luminaries of his generation. Khenpo Sodargye studied the traditional corpus of philosophical treatises, and he also received the entire corpus of Tibetan esoteric Buddhist transmissions. He was eventually placed in charge of the institute, where he became its principal teacher. He also served as Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche's principal translator for Chinese disciples. Khenpo Sodargye has become one of the most eminent contemporary Buddhist masters. As a Tibetan Lama, a Buddhist scholar and teacher, a prolific translator into Chinese of Buddhist texts, and as a modern Buddhist thinker, he's renowned across Asia and the West for his interest in the integration of traditional Buddhist teachings with global issues and modern life. He's lectured extensively across China and parts of East, South, and Southeast Asia, as well as Europe and North America. And he's recently been giving lectures across the United States at American universities, including Harvard, Columbia, Georgetown, and the University of Colorado. So I invite you all now to please rise and to join me in welcoming Khenpo Sodargye to Yale.
다 대랑 통만더니 드니 롭잔디 출루 짐주 촉바고 촉조다나 드니 거근침모 콩남바 참말라 든지 턴킨다나 드니 고르코차팔라 드니 닝오네 더 과전체지기연.
I'd like to take the opportunity to thank the Department of Religion here at Yale University for inviting me to come and have this opportunity to share with all of you. Thank you very much.
다 대랑 드닌더니 nga tsumnyamda lobzhong shi kyo kapshiong ga nangdong zuwanda tangsang zanglang ga shiogni tani tab sangtan gom gyawanda tsuwi chota jirtar lakhtar shi gyo urkor ga tani tarigar kacharinda tayin ni na taga shirtang ni shadi kiryong na taga karsang terang taga zambong ga masadang siyin na tsangma da jiga zhezang chewa dangna, devzhen de xia mangwa dangna, lo hajang gopo, lo hajang tsepo, da dimu dirabzga toni da yonze. Dimu dirabzga to yonne na, nga tsu kartsang derang gan tsowi chot da jiga sim nardawa pa dangna, sim lanjig sim zhongyo wanda, hajang met marungwe, kar chimbu netsirzga kir yoko.
Now the subject that I've chosen to speak on here today can be titled Contemplative Awareness in Our Modern World. And the reason for this is because these days, generally in the world, as you know, everyone is incredibly busy and engaged in many different types of activities. Many people are stressed out, and their minds can become quite abrasive and unpleasant. And so, based on all of these circumstances that humanity is experiencing, it becomes all the more important to know the methods that will actually benefit us in taming and pacifying our own minds. In fact, learning these methods becomes indispensable.
tani shichib ge ta na ngoma ge mayin nan ja ge tani tangrip ge ngchu mayin nan ja ge de ge chowa chowa jertang da na samlo tong tong dan dimo choyang ja ge yo na mare de ni na de ge ma tham chi ge dan choyi ge mugir da na de jin da na ji choyi ren tang ge ngunzen dan dimo choyang da ri ge ji ja ge yo na mare 대인디 땅성 그 디름도 지 디럽 엄흑스르 잔즈다나 디럽 지 응아마가 머럽 초고 지 냠섬요 마트바가 따지 디럽 잡으러 와지도 쳐가다 요래.
And in terms of this subject, previously, the way of life of a human being in the past was in many ways recognizing more the value of the human dignity and the human existence and how we can maximize this for the benefit of self and others. And these days, this kind of value system seems to be declining.
다 드럽 니모 무스르 잔즈 그 능아 그 뭐탐측 그 드니 지 삼비 등거 지금 등거 다지 출력 연난 자가 조르긴 거 르니 난 자가 드니 강 따리양나 나츠라 삼비 제제이다는 상루 등거 양나 지 런거 리보다나 런거 셈라 그 판바 요르기 그 데스타와 그 드니 지 다만 따와서 그 가츠데라 머슬라양 메트머롱아 송을도 요거.
And so that's why it becomes very important that whoever you are and whatever your particular goals may be, in terms of your religious preference, priority, your direction for gaining wisdom and knowledge, whatever the case may be, that you are able to bring forth the maximum benefit to your mind and body in order to accomplish your goals.
때이니나 셈 스라르나르드 바베다노 런거 샤왑 접네나 자가 대진도는 지 르긴등거 단소위 지 제스탄 강다 강아 그거 상록당 고네나 주 머즈근도 요 런거 지 셈的다 라왕 토바당나 셈的지 꾸르드 바 따테스타바즈이나 머스이나 지 초아가 조금 대시 정도 요인도 냠섬 용텀너리 대인디 다 응체기 조르진 르그네즈 거나 장나 나무다리고 곰축 쩐지빔도 그럽나 생왕의 길나 추탐체 왕의 길와이노 송원제 다 뜻소 상록당의 결혼디 몸에 가서 되는 거 지금 왕의 마지르와 당나 등을 때는 몽어즈도 생왕의 마지르와리 그 람바리 삼기고 하루 때나요 거너리 런거 소리 냠뇽 거 왕도 시기 잔즈기나요 대지다리 무고지즈 마레다리 참에 다리 삼로지 복당을 고고 삼고.
Hence, to take stock of oneself and to bring the mind to a peaceful place is very important. And then to know how to engage that mind, that mental state, in the activities that one is intending to accomplish. This is what we need to consider more and more in this busy life. Because if one is able to achieve mastery over one's own mind, then anything and everything becomes possible. This is incredibly useful. To give you a quote from one of the precious sutras called the Ratna Megha, or Cloud of Jewels Sutra, it states, quote, "If the ordinary mind can be overcome, all phenomena will be mastered," end of quote. And so, based on that, we can see just how useful it is to be able to control and master our own mind, and then we become masters of our world, of our suffering, and of our environment.
다 생왕의 결과나 랑커가 지 샤와 잔즈가 왕의 일 하장 까모 있는데 거기나 샘제근데 견도 알란친 뇽바 타바스의 결이온제 알란친 뇽바 등수 무즈가 럼바진도 뜻들고니나 다 당보텔라 지 작은 더와다나 대전도는 다지 탁발아서 박은 더와는다 다 타버 넘버 나소즈게 기찬지나 되네 알란친 뇽바도 지 럼기 tani jidar dang baga song namji ge ner kumna de reng ge chin dun du de lan chen na dari chiwen yo ji na ya chong ne de na ngun ngama dari ge jagar na zu dari ge sim da na sim darwan de ta mo gang ji ge ne de lang bo chin darwa ge hui ji ge da na hui ri dam che ba yi da na jan la ngo cha ji ne re dan de terang che gi ji gorkup ge de soksa ge tab de mo ma re je me shi jib ge na de sim der ji on da lan chen ge hui ge na ngamo ne ta ge war da na de hui ri ge go ge che nam ba dari ngo chu shi ji 줄 요너리 디모 용지 있나 캐남베야 지금 다 샘즈기들 흥나 공화단도 지금 들기즈만즈다 남지거 내ርከ나 지금 당로 저도 강아였나 다리 지금 라마 토바즈도 요지인즈고 삼기고 랑깅오게 나 다리 녜시트모 마인 바키 온게도 드네 지금 다 지금 착 까모다는 지금 샤와 하장 다리가 다 모두지즈 디모즈 연거 온 말에
We simply must learn how to master our own minds, for without that we'll be unable to accomplish our goals. And in many ways, the mind, when it is left untamed, is likened to the example taken from ancient India of a crazed elephant. And so in order to control this elephant, this huge beast that is out of control, there are many different antidotes that would be applied or methods that would be applied to get a hold of this animal by use of chains, by use of ropes, whatever the case may be, gradually trying to bring the beast under control. And so just like that, when we think about our mind, in many ways it is like this crazed elephant, which is completely out of control. And there were many illustrations that are found showing the different stages of taming the wild elephant of the mind until gradually it becomes peaceful and no other methods are thereafter necessary. And so no matter how difficult it may seem to be, just like this crazy elephant, the mind can and will be mastered and controlled if one knows the correct techniques for doing so.
당상 아출 연동건 소위 쳤더는 그거 롭자와 연난자 그랬더니 지금 장그 켈레와 당의 레康소소 몽즈그 뭐 탐치그 연동그 셈마를 나르다바베다는 곰니게다는 하장 다리가 그거 특니부 기르게온제 또 하장 가르치와리 데스터 시키즈겠나 때라 지 텀몽다 텀몽 마인 바가 연던 하장 몽즈도 중고온제 캬버드영 또 중거 갑나 쳤제온제나 제당 니당 락샤와 당전 리기 기브지고 제이 다 나추 리포라 또 판밤 정고네나 조 다리가 연던 그 자마자기다나 대진도 니디 하 다리가 크기다나 대진도 르진도 다리가 금니시기 તને દાતાંસા તારી ફરની છે દકયા જે 만바던 니모 모용 건데 더당나 대신도 더 조 당전 공기원도 단대 때니 나 다리가 리본도 대탕용 게다나 તને 지 게르니르 메기다 다다 마엔 바가야는 연던 그 지 다리가 다 리오가 તને 짜르롱 틀레 감도 조 탐쳤다 다리 라왕 그 다리가 다 밥게다나 라왕 그 다리가 하즈도 다리가 get바 때라 속박을 고근에는 되는 아주 심 연동 건 소위 쳤다 다른 나르도 바베 다나도가 심 잡습 마인 바근에는 심을 나르도 바베 곰 결정도 다 당상 다리 출력 쇼고 제기디나 나 하장 가르치 오즈고 송원제.
So in terms of the many benefits of engaging in contemplative awareness or meditation to tame the mind. Even these days, in government offices, in companies, among employees, we find the active use and engagement of bringing in mindfulness meditation instructors to work with the people in the workplace to help them to calm down and ease their stress and begin to learn how to control and master their own mind so that they can work better, so that they can be more productive, and the many benefits that come from that. Not only that, it is taught as well that there are 4 causes that enhance and benefit the human body. And those 4 causes are good food, enough sleep, massage, and primarily the 4th is samadhi, or contemplative meditation. And so, again, emphasizing the importance of knowing how to calm the mind and to rest the mind in absorption in its own nature, so that this is a way of enhancing one's physical health and vitality. In fact, it is the principal way for doing so. And so it points out to us just how important this is. And there are other methods that are found in meditation of working with one's psychic body, of the channels, of the energies that flow through the channels, and of the essential fluids, the bindu that flows through the channels, so that these constituents will become natural and will become functional for a person to use this in spiritual practice. Well, all of this is completely and entirely dependent upon how one can control one's own mind and bring it to the point of being functional. And so, of course, as you know, in religious studies and in terms of spiritual direction, then that should be the main emphasis as well.
다 근데 회나 상튼 당연전 디모 곰주 온데 치레잖아. 근데 지 당상 존나 뭐즈 그다 와스근 삼고 로야라 토네 치론디 런거 강올라 다리거 게르니르 밥교 삼주 다리 셈거 똑바다는 셈칠 뭐요 차양요나래. 양 가르거 다리거 런거 다 멋세정도 요도 연랑아 만드게다나 그 최통통인디 그 직된 바로도 큰 로고 삼주요 다리거 시발라 똑바양 뭐요지. 다또 시르나 다리거 직된 그 감거 그 시노지 직된다 남지기 셈정거 강당강 날 기스틴 모마인 발라테니 키론디 직딱바당 담비랑 진장즈고 말이다. 딱 내급 그 투사 돈주 공원도 시나 그 땅엔진 곰노 강성도 초이나 그 체 하장 롱오당 당상다나 예거지 야너그레 오파레 다테마인 바가네는 그 소호레 지금 사차 잔당 잔나는 체 다리가 다 로야초 연초다 된다 거는 추바몽 요고죠 너영소 땅엔진 곰조라 다리 저기원제 드네 다리가 땅엔진 연도 곰노 강석도는 다 지금 로 다리가 드네 지금 하장 통보 인정나라는 그 존샤드 그 치료도 거는 런거 리부 그 장등 거 왕도 시키지한데 나다 지금 지금 정당 다리 리라무 고고 메예레다는 인롱 와르다 다리 쏘트뼈 단 디모소 오마 땅엔진 곰나 체게 런거 다리가 답 곰주 스톡거는 띠 다리 니바드 냠스 뇽 톱고요너레 또 지금 런커거 잠바가 다리 지금 종 샤드나 스타바즈다나 지금 알랑지 샤드나 스타바 지금 디모 나글로 기스킨 거 말에 당성 체게 룽우연 초위 촛나다가 하르테지나 당 오마 지금 셈데라 라왕 토웨다나 셈도 그 야하즈거 나르든 법도노 강석 담치도 능 셈기 대와 라나메파 요파 무 마구 바레타나 그 슈초고 방도 시기잔지게나 타나 다리가 지 리거 그 대탕다나 정당다나 대신도는 너축 모게야나 지 다리가 니 니바드 다림 손 덮고 요너레.
Now these days, perhaps more than before, it's hard to say, but we find people becoming very concerned about how their appearance will be as they grow older. And so trying to come up with many different methods to prevent the wrinkles and to prevent the process of aging so that they can stay youthful for longer periods of time. And of course, wanting to extend the life expectancy because of fear of death and lack of preparation, and all these points come into play. Well, it is a fact that the universe and the inhabitants are not static. Everyone knows this, that this world of ours is impermanent and every creature that comes into it is also impermanent. But that in fact, the value and the strength of contemplative awareness, absorption in meditation, is such that a human being can actually really extend their life through this. And we find examples of this happening among practitioners from beginningless time, since they began this process. In China, Mongolia, Tibet, those who go to advanced years beyond 100 and who are spiritual adepts, who are so accomplished in meditative absorption that they can just extend their life expectancy somewhat indefinitely. Not only that, you find practitioners of meditation looking more youthful than others who may not meditate, who would be more haggard looking, having more vitality, having more energy and a presence or a brilliance to the way they look, which is unlike an ordinary person. This is all because of the strength of their meditation. And this is an example of how the practice works, that we can physically see this. This is proof. And so these aren't just stories or illustrations, such as about the elephant, but this is for real, because this really happens. And so we have to believe and know that, in fact, the benefits of contemplative meditative absorption are tremendous and will affect us in all of these ways.
Atayna kares samtung gomjo ndo tangsang ta americana mo yok tani Canada ta na television da ta hona Australia re tani kharshok ko tarig yark mo na ta lopcha nang ko gergen mo yang samtung de tangen zin da gomi kirong da rang sem de la ji tani ji jevde Tokyo ga chetga gomjur gyagdang mo ndo tani ji loma ga na ya ji loma ga de samtung gomdak ko chokpa tela jimjik she no go yang ji lekang dimopzge kirong da na dangsang hwerna nga lopcha mongboz ga songnien ti na na yang de samtung gomdak dekak zer ko na ja ti mo hajang mo yo तेदं जावा जांग तांसा ता ना हंगामा परचर गुप्च लोर गुप्च विर काप कने न यागर क तने जोंखां गारे ग तग जोंबा छका तग ता सेम मार देथप क चेतन तग नामजरवा गारे ग तग गोमजप क फ्ला ता गोमजप क तने नांदोन त मारा तारे लोक्सो गेवे जिमा हाजंग तारी चमजे हाज थोवेदा तने यागर खजों ग सुइदा तांसा ता यागर ग यान जोंखां zergona chamkhang dimo mons gna na tene zomba thamchik ka tari gan da gomgon re to gomi khiron di ji khonche ki gendang ga sem gar dengkun ta zomba gar dengar da na ji ngasu tari ga ta rawang tho yo no magar dengar da ni gan dag me ka tene khiron di khochu ji dengar chakag ner ko samara ji da na ji sema hara tari ga ta ji devi tut bare da na tene ji ta rangkhar ga 또 그러나 사차들이 여트먹은 와서 그러나 자가 레컨 여트먹은 와 디모즈 그는 그 소아르케 교텔라는 등을 치우메 된 소톱교 디모그 다리가 네처 모즈도 요거는래 또 있는 나진디 케르나바투 양 지금 다른 가야는 롭잔디 나나야 지금 에코 소스타나 더니 지금 디 타다다리 곰좀 연락진다가 배 몽보 요늘에서 가고 또 요네 나다리가 또 하장 영어를 삼고요.
And these days in the modern countries, to cite some other examples of how this works, we can find this process occurring in America, in Canada, in Australia, and also in Eastern countries, where in different colleges and schools of learning, teachers are able to guide students in meditation techniques so that they can bring their minds to a state of peace, tranquility, calmness, and then the effect that this has on the school and the community becomes well known. And it begins to increase from there. And so I myself have that experience in the colleges that I've been able to found in Tibet, where we have been emphasizing contemplative meditation, and we have many, many amazing positive results. Not only that, when I visited India in the 1990s, there was one prison there where some of the masters were, some of the yogis were going in and teaching meditation to the inmates. And this became so effective as a way to benefit these prisoners, these inmates, that eventually the Indian government began to support and fund this process, which is now something quite common there and in many other countries as well. Because what happens is, when you think of the suffering of an inmate who's perhaps sentenced to remain in prison for their life, this is something quite inconceivable to us. But if you imagine that these people who have the time to spare are actually taught the techniques which will help them to relieve their suffering, they can transform which otherwise is a very unpleasant environment and life into something that becomes pleasant, feasible, and interesting, workable. Why? Because their mind is now transformed, that it's all happening within their own mind, and that's where the process is taking place. And so that's why we can see these many examples of how this works and how important it is. You must know of many such examples yourself in your own associations and environment, if you think about it.
tani sacha jang ge zongkang chamkang gare ge na song da na zomba cha ka de chuchu sha ne da chuchu sha di da na de zomban gare ge da semtok ge deng ren de ji khochu tani ji sangtum gong ya ge to ku mara ji song no de one ji jang ge da re ren tang jar de me pa ti mo re ze ge ya ka de na da hui na che ge jikten ge kam ge ji niba da ri ge 다 지금 요식시 자세를 권해난 자가 되는데 런거 다 참강런도 진직된 거 감거는 거 나티 지금 다 지금 득슈 고리 때문에 있는데 단 니무는 거 되게 샘거 등으로 또 접합디데 되네 런커 거 지금 로아미 런거 라왕 다리 웹슈시 그 요는 거 직된 거 감건 고리 영원디 되네 지금 근거 타게 나라는 샘기 등으로 소 요요고 언제단도 소 다리가 지제도 지 각각 침보 말이 삼고요. 또 있나 무수 상동 공기원도 당상 파르치와즈게 있나 다지 인치민치메 그 되네 지 냠작가 다리 시작야담 제바이 리흐지종담 제바이 무스메다나 너 공기원도 지 상동 공기원들에 또 마연 바가 지 자니런 론드 그 쇼름 Huernadari Lankur Kurdi Naranjaga, Division the Lake of Jupti Naranjaga, Division the Lam the Rogoyona, Tan Dimotsu Tamchikachi, Sanctum of Gumju, the Chimachizre, Samju, Lalap Samsertimo Reda, Tungu Tokoshatna, Tao Dariga, Da Jerniv Jositana, Li, Yetchagamara, Wembaga, Gogan and a Wembasam Gogo Jupkonje, Retana, Da Sanctum de la Tancha to Vicherondi. 지금 탁직도 켐나가 닉즈멘도 고중이 봐요 말에 내가 사자 강도 양 쇼름 강도 시기 잔즈이나 런그 셈도 다리가 용서 안내 듣고요 노래.
Also for myself before I have spent time going into a number of prison or correctional institutions where I've taught the inmates meditation techniques and have given them the actual tools through which they will be able to alleviate their mental suffering. And it is really, we have come to discover it is the very best method in order to do so for these kind of individuals, because they are completely dependent upon what's happening within their mind. because their environment is not going to stimulate them and bring them temporary surges of happiness. They're just always in this environment, and so it becomes all the more potent and also obvious how important it is to get stock of one's mind, and then everything else will fall into place. And in one way, too, you can think, well, what could be worse than that kind of a sentence into a correctional institution? But if a prisoner has the opportunity to control and pacify their mind, then they have mastery. And if they can do that there in that environment, then it indicates that it's not so difficult for us to do that here in our environment. And so this can be an inspiration to us. Now, when it comes to thinking about contemplative meditation and how to do that, many people feel, well, it's important that one knows how to sit in the correct meditation posture, to place the legs in the Vajrasana, and to have the eyes closed or in a very low gaze, and that it wouldn't be possible to sustain this while eating, while going here and there, while engaging in social life, and so forth. From one point of view, that is true, that for a beginner, it's taught that one must go into isolation, and in a quiet, isolated environment, then one learns how to control and pacify the body, the speech, and the mind. However, it's not just only this one direction. It should be understood that, in fact, this can be done anywhere and any time if one has the tools for knowing how to do so.
다 네 롭자 소소가 나나 된지 그 상품 공기도 요요르다 영내 때는나 다 파르체와 그 당선 네 상품 공기도 치레제나 다 런커 거나 똑강 제가면 저거 셈마라 찾게를 그 셈마라 찾기를 다디 다 라라그 다리 때라 지 잠바던 시진 그 샤라시다는 때 랑아 남똑기 그 요드밋 장즈 그다게다는 디모 인등등의 막똑제면 양지 상품 공교 때라 지 공거 길근거 지금 차쳤다나 망학 대신도 지금 줄긴 디모야 지금 매니 지금 파르체와서 그 라랑 수수다리가 지금 나모야르께나랑 지가 아무스면 등등이야. 등급디 말하냐란데 지가 아무스면 등등이야. 단 디모스가 다리가 당선 파르체와 공원장 거야. 단등 문진 요나요는 너 내급급 상탄즈 그랬잖아. 너 내급급 상탄즈 그래. 때때네다는 나똑 군은 나똑 다리가 내쪽소 담쳤던 말아다리 군은 이하도 다리 용거 요너래. 데라 판바 요너르잖아. 데라 판바 요너래. 연등 그 책이 샘는 거 다리가 지금 다 지금 등으로다는 요모와다는 대비신다는 지금 도착했던 그 똑바로 보소 담쳤던 말은 군은 요 등등너래. 그랬다는 양도 지금 나우 익선 거는 거 저 나가 다리 이게 그는 것을 고난다가 줄긴 거 익차 그는 거 집모 셔디케론디 다롱양 텔레야라 다리 지금 옥 논지요 바다는 다롱야라 다리 텔레 제상 조요 바나바스도 요고요너래.
And in terms of the contemplative awareness meditation, many people consider that this means to simply bring the mind to a state of relaxation. And that can be done through application of mindfulness and vigilance or mental alertness. And yes, that is a form of contemplative meditation. And yet, it seems that that form of contemplative meditation is more or less the emptying of the thoughts from the mind. And so just resting there in that state, where there's really not any other application of extraordinary pith instructions, but rather than that, to just rest in contemplative meditation, it does have its benefits, especially if one is able to identify the passions, such as desire and so forth, and just release them or let them be. Does this work in a very subtle and effective way? Actually, to introduce methods that are more geared towards the process of really, really releasing the negativities from the mind, means that one can increase the advantageous circumstance of one's own mental capacity to come forth, and that this process would perhaps be a more far-reaching way to accomplish contemplative awareness meditation.
대랑 인더니 그 cher남발라 teni kungu teni ona ngamane lo nirtong yarmar ko lorji dang dambaga teni samptong go dangdo teni mdor dibaz de shada gangtong ga mangag de mdor dibaz de shada te ne na dariga di mangag de ji jindang ga terang ti choyo na yang chege ke ji gomna chopa teni jindang ga ji mawa cher nambi chui cho de dari we shu shi ji jang zi na da ji ge sim 데라 다리 라왕 톱교도 그 야차기야 다리가 다른 거 좀바 당는 니바 다리가 돈 탑나 요건을 대연내나 다리가 답상동 건견데라 지 shirna 다리 모즈 요건제다는 뛰는 거 쪼도 지금 니바르가 다리가 상하게 처용 됨초 지금 덥시도 get된 저원제다 단 덥시 get다 파르체와다 다리 스톱직은 안 되고 언제 그거 스톱직 다리가 땡기다나 세모네비 타버 그단 대외 쉬이 장즈기나 teni ngoma tariga ranga sem tela tariga rawang ya hazu da top kire tena tariga wogdo teni ngi chi sem ne bi tabar go dana teni dari nibar ngar pang tap zamzu dum dor dibazu da ker namba shat da ker nambe tariga ma go na nyet da na chore.
Because there is this difference, as I just mentioned, I've decided today that it would be important to, in a very concise way, share with you the 2,000 or more years old tradition of the time-tested wisdom for achieving mental placement in contemplative absorption. And this is based on the Upadesha, or the pith instructions that have been passed on down the line from masters to disciples, so that we know for sure that these methods truly bring the mind to a state of not only pacification, but personal mastery. And if one is able to really practice and pursue in a gradual but consistent way, it is 100% for sure that the result will be personal mastery of one's mind. And so that is done by knowing what is referred to as the 5 faults that prevent one from being able to rest in mental absorption. And then there are 8 qualities to be familiar with. There are 6 strengths of our own mind that are applied to what is referred to as the 9 modes of mental placement. And in knowing these points and through this process, one is able to achieve the goal of mastery of the mind.
Togmer tani tap sampton la tarin jigmatab kyakne na gagzer kona jaga nibar ngayo kyto lelo tang na dam ngab chit tago shang gon do shit ndom shit sei dana tago taksong re tayne na tago togmer tam ni lelo cha ga yorkya dimoyne na tago shawa de shur gung da tago dam ngla tarin jing na mare 대전도 다리가 런거 지금 흥원그 상동 공력 그 탑는데 做탐지장 지금 흥원도 지금 종즈 시어 나라는 지마 다리가 디 망업 지다 전도 제촌에 있나 다가 다 너가 양 다리 이화서도 다리가 부담을 안 직탑는 말에 다 때인디 때니까 그 다가 상동 공주고 저라 토마가 디 다리가 저라 때라 다가 접르시는 레즈온데.
So let's look at the 5 faults first, and the first of these is what we call laziness or sloth. And so that's obviously a condition whereby one is just totally uninspired to do the practice. And so that is the first fault that needs to be eliminated, and that's followed by forgetfulness. And forgetfulness means, as the word says, if one has learned the techniques for knowing how to meditate, one is failing to retain them, to remember them and apply them to the meditation. And so if there is laziness and forgetfulness, these first 2, this is going to impede one's ability to engage with the meditative absorption or with the practice.
tani tari tab gombi nerkabna tari semhara yang edana the shiror gutsung no tada chig tani yang gombi nerkabna semmara nang da twe dana ganit gnanga tari semmara tapsong na ta ter namba ni ka ga the gom yang tak ba meong ni chek the ta ngujila tari jubzenare devjin da ta chi nimbo de la nang tok ki chirong de nimbo de la the ane yang da tari ga nimbo gun de shi de na ta ni gum de chi nyang yo chamare go samedana semkri ane yang da nimbo tin chuna the de shi tari ga chak chewa the ten no ta dana yang tari gum gur nam tok gum bo nerkem nar nam tok de chi ki yang na ki gan de kan jo ta na nimbo ta ni motin no ndem shi zenare ta de ni ga the gum gur 다 지금 지글라 지그다리 조르고 지스미 오는 거 지라다리가 우저버치에너레 대나 넘버 2던이 한쪽 그다리가 상통 곰니나 도머르 지 레로다 담고 지파야 알고 그래 와르도 곰베네르 끝나도 샹와다 고파니가 요냐나 말을 때문에 하즈도 다리 곰탑나 말에 대님 지그도 띠 곰도 그 gen종 시르고니나 땅 이버 장가 하나 지금 너쉿 하장 땡치소나냐는 말은 너쉿 맞대나는 말에 촐라 람바즈 고너레 직된 그 샤와 깡다 깡 접나라 촐라 람바즈 게 하장 가르치와인 것도 참에다리 식설다트.
And then the third and fourth are elation and lethargy. So elation means being too excited, too anxious, too speedy. And so this will prevent one from just calming down and actually being able to engage in the meditation. So elation. Lethargy is just the opposite, being sluggish, being torpid, just not being able to be wakeful so that one can actually engage this practice. And if these third and fourth faults are there, actually these are included as the third. So if this third fault is there, then this is going to impede one's accomplishment of the actual meditation practice. And then the fourth is to forget the antidotes that have been taught. So at the time of receiving instructions on how to meditate, then one is given specific antidotes and techniques through which one will be able to apply those during meditation when other kinds of obstacles and different thought proliferations surge forth to dominate the mind and prevent one from meditating. And so if those antidotes are forgotten, then that problem is there. And likewise, for the fifth fault, it would be the overuse of an antidote, at which time when elation and lethargy have actually become pacified, still trying to use antidotes when it's no longer necessary. And so these are the five faults. Laziness and forgetfulness in the beginning for a practitioner will be the biggest obstacles, and they will impede one's ability to actually begin or engage with practice as a beginner. Elation and lethargy are there in the interim all the time, which will impede one's ability to accomplish the actual meditation practice. And then forgetting the antidotes or overuse of antidotes will eventually obstruct one's ability to increase the meditation. So therefore, we can't be overemphasizing, we can't be underemphasizing, as is the case with anything that we do in the world. It must be in balance.
The tariga nibarngar pang sarni zonte the dan the shit yet jena drag stop trick ten gonre stop trick the chire jena stop tangbo the tani kandang kang gomdro shena ran mar tari tubir top gergen le tari mangak tur go je to chire tani tudun de ane yang da tari somlok tang go je to ni re tani samba da tari ga ti rang rang ga tari jamba ten go ji jambir top tang tani tari ga 돈때 지르타와 진다 안에 양들 곡스마 샤라시다는 시즌된 거죠. 되네 존지가 톱다다나. 되님 지도 다리 용선 지비톱제이다. 다 ರಂ가 다리 다르가야나 티 곰점 냠레온다. 예롱 와라다리 리차르게 지롱단 다 톱직을 거고 더거대 땡겨 더 가르친데.
And as I mentioned, now we'll discuss in brief, this is very concise, the 6 strengths. So these six strengths must be encouraged and must be utilized in order to accomplish samadhi meditation. Having eliminated the 5 faults, one engages the 6 strengths. And they begin with the first, which is hearing or listening to the instructions on how to engage in meditation. And one would, of course, have to rely upon a spiritual mentor or a master of meditation in order to learn how to do this. So that's the first strength. The second is contemplation. Having listened to the teachings, then one must contemplate the inner meaning and come to understand that within one's own mind. So contemplation is the second. The third strength is mindfulness. One must bring up awareness of this information and this truth so that it is part of, it is permeating one's mind stream, mindfulness of what's actually going on and what one is emphasizing. And the fourth is vigilance, thinking of the qualities and the faults and being able to really be vigilant in terms of how one is applying the practice in one's life. Then, enthusiasm, the fifth, which means a form of diligence or exertion, but enthusiasm, so that one is actually enjoying and wanting to engage in this practice. One has a passion for it. And then the sixth is achieving a state of total familiarity, so that this permeates who one is. One becomes completely familiar. These are the 6 strengths.
다더니 뛰는 거 더니 세원이비 샘마라 내치가 탑을 깨우니는 그 탑동도 더니 샘낭던 쪽까지인데 샘낭던 쪽에도 다 동마메 반에 따가 왔던 거 지기 샘지기도 시루라가 양는 막 독재면 난들 까마시간 쪽고나 까모지인데 된디 샘때 동물 땅이 꿈을 잡고 싸매다는더니 탁거가 하라 적교원도 탑당원래 델라다리가 샘낭던 쪽까지는래 더 있나 더 다리가 되네 투비도 때때니 그런 샘낭던 쪽으로 또 당원래.
And now, as I mentioned, we'll go over the 9 modes of placement. And keeping in mind that from beginningless time until now, our mind has been going outside of ourselves. We're always externalizing. We're always objectifying. And so when we decide now that we finally want to introspect and internalize and go into knowing who we really are, that's when we decide to meditate. And so the first is called placement. And so it is the mode of just placing the mind in its own nature. And it is through the strength of hearing the teachings or instructions that one is able to engage the first mode of just basic mental placement.
더네 세원이비 타박 니바드 치레제나 때다리 긴든 쪽바제너리 된디 긴 쪽바도 탕땅우 니르급 샘낭도 저는 어디리 긴데 멈트네 연롱오 바다 하르저가 다 탕땅우 까르막치가 샘다니 나더니 하르 까르마르가 까르마치 디무랑아 연롱오 바라 더급 상로 땅에다 낚샤밥게 응나 공학 샤밥게 와르츠근 잠거 랑시가 하라 샘종놈냥아 더가 다sem네비 더가 타박 니바점부터 제너레 더 조다리급 삼비도 왔던 거너레.
The second of the 9 is called continual placement. And what that means is, for example, when you first achieve just placement, resting the mind in its nature, you may be able to do that for 1 minute, or 5 minutes, or 10 minutes, and eventually for longer and longer periods of time. But that the strength that allows you to continue placement of the mind in its nature is the second of the 6 strengths, and that's contemplation. And so through the power of your own contemplative awareness, you are able to continually sustain placement of the mind in its nature until it just remains there of its own accord. So continual placement.
드니스 세원이비 타 선바 전부터 란덴 쪽은 란덴 적도 다 셈드 마라 네이다도 티더니 양 다리가 시루르 그 즈그다트로 라소밤 초뇨제 디 키롱디 던거 랑거 잠바 그고 용수 종의 키롱 땅이 셈초와 근드림 초냐는 말에 사메다나 더금 초고 요노 던거 양 사락 네가 요노 땅아자 양 하름 초이 키롱디 양 사락 네가 요노 땅아자 안에 양의 몸特这个 세문이비 탈라데 바순시 송노명아这个 세문이비 탑다리가 선발에 또 주어도 다리가 잠비도블라 다리 된 건데.
Now the third is called persistent placement. And this is placed in the category of while sustaining continual placement, the second, through contemplative awareness, then of course the sensory stimuli is ongoing. The mind will want to follow form. The mind will want to follow sound, smell, taste, and so forth. And you will think, as a meditator, there I am pursuing this sensory stimuli. And so you'll bring yourself back to just resting in mind's nature through mindfulness, which is the third strength. And so in order to achieve persistent placement, one needs to be using mindfulness while meditating, so that that which is going out, it's like your mind is still wanting to externalize, you just have to harness it back in continuously and persistently to be able to maintain the actual meditation.
셈니비 따탑 지바 잠보도 다리가 지바 족당 gen족 란덴족 니에버른족 샤차로 샤차로 말해봐 더나 니에버른족스게 니에버른족도 다리 치르잖아 디 궁그 잠박을 깃도 야라 다리 찌든스 송에 더가 님보식 작보 되네다나 따세모 영감 만족에다나 그러나 따따 키르나비 세미나 셈 랑토건득 마도이 더가 하라 사라가영게 요니나 단들이 셈 어야냐 안 말은 된디 셈 띠초 통통스 그랑에 셈득 마도나 땅에 곰처터 잡사메다나 셈스라 스랑거 셈 토가저이 띠다리 잠비 진야를 학버럭도 안 놓냐가 더가 다 되니 니비 타바 지바가 송다 돈데 더양 다리가 저거 잠비 또 받된 건데.
So then the next one is the fourth mode of placement called proximate placement. And that means getting close to the state of being able to place the mind. And at this time, one has to keep on being diligent with mindfulness and the application of different antidotes that would have been taught to you by your teacher. If this happens, then you need to apply this antidote so as to pacify that, and so forth. And so you would think in your mind, yes, I've gone off in that direction, that's not okay, I need to do this and bring the mind back. And it's a process that you go through so that you can bring the mind back more quickly, more expediently through the application of mindfulness. So proximate placement.
다더니 탑을 나와 전부터 들어버린 족바세너 탑을 나와 들어버린 족바도 치레세나 심 르나르도 와의 연던 몽스 요토 다리랑 삼로땅 더니 회나 공도 샤파타바 다리가 심더 르나르도 와티 몸에 지그 런거 리심거 대와이르나 자고 쇼칸트네나 연던 몽스 고노 때 삼로 잡던 저노 팀냥아 다리 세곤데 더연네 낙조 다리가 시빈 거도블게 바래.
The next mode of placement, the fifth, is called taming placement. And of the six strengths, here it is through the strength of vigilance that one is able to achieve the taming of the mind while it is remaining in its nature, placed in its nature. Now, again, here one has to think how to apply the qualities and how to eliminate the faults. So for example, it's at this stage that the meditator will remind himself or herself of the benefits of achieving meditative absorption, the benefits of contemplative awareness in one's life, how it affects one's body, how it affects one's mind, becoming more and more blissful. and achieving these levels of benefit. And so that would be the fifth taming placement, which occurs through vigilance, thinking of qualities and thinking of faults of not doing so.
성내 비 탑직바드 치레제나 그 저르시 바트레 다 저르시 바트 그 조 세르나르트 마우니 부다리 준 몽즈도 그 요너라 그 얼나톡 잔라 다리 그 드네 등을 몽온 정조고 드네 준 몽즈 고너레 디준 때서 탐치다 그 싸움로 당에다나 양 탑 멍부고 그런 그 셈데 네버 시바 라다리 존노 디제네레 또양 조도 다리 그 시진 그 공속도 건데
And the next one, the sixth, is pacifying placement. This also is in the category of involving more vigilance. And so through the strength of vigilance, now one understands that the many conceptual proliferations that basically overcome and overwhelm our minds are the source of our suffering, that this suffering comes from within our mind. And so, based on the teachings, one applies the different methods to pacify. And so pacifying placement.
Tenis denba the rapte jevershepa rapte jevershepare rapte jevershepa musirg tenin dochak yena the tati darin dochak nimbo zigla sokba dari ramjin matrpa la sokba gomgi da chi tene jerdan kenena jerdan nimbo chi dari shamba da nyanje gomgi ta tmaim ba khtumg kenena ya khtumg nimbo chi 직된 그 감거다리 시시 남정다나 템저거라고 다 디모 조금의 결용하다나 그 런거 뇨모왕 고는 수시다나 세mer 나르던 뵙기고 또 다리가 덤바레 도영 다리가 드네 시정거 또 다리가 조 존지거 또 밥된 거너래.
The seventh mode of placement is called proximate pacifying. And here this occurs through enthusiasm for the practice. And it specifically refers to the time when a meditator will definitely apply the antidotes. Like, for example, if desire is coming up in the mind of the meditator, as it will, then the antidotes would be thinking that the object of one's desire has no true inherent existence, and other such methods that would have been taught by one's teacher. This would be the time to apply them. If anger is surfacing, then using the antidote of compassion and love. If it is more delusion, then thinking about the interdependency of the phenomenal world and the fundamental nature of reality and so forth, so that one can actually suppress the head of delusion while simultaneously meditating. That would be the category of the seventh level of proximate pacifying.
다 심갸빠 잠보도 드니 스틱직든 조바터리 스틱직든 조기도 소 드니 다 상튼 여롱 와도 고미 키론데 남지거 내급나지 샹르고 나도 똑차가 마르지다나 더 심다리 스틱직도 랑거 심강아 다리고 코르네나 파르치르 파르친 조트노 디모스가 젠데 더 다리가 양 존지거 또 데니다니 케키즈레.
The eighth, which is called achieving a single continuum. Now here it means that one is really getting close to having just this total, even experience of contemplative meditation. In other words, elation and lethargy are not really surfacing so much anymore. Mostly there is this capacity to single-pointedly sustain awareness in meditative absorption.
드니 타브르가 잠보도 다리금 냠버른 족바센제 담 냠버른 족바도 남식거 내급나 저 나톡 다리금 차락 담쳤다 하르 양스지다는 스미인 룽 와르다 다리가 드니 냠식 건강에 만다바 그러나 응글로르지거 갑나치 로당 다와가 와르다야나 셈냠식 지거 탄레 만디지다는 샤티온제 다 대수은 자와가네는 또 남식거 내급나 셈 하장 다리가 드니 다 저디 건강도 네트 파티모스가 세고더래 또 있는 나도 스톱직는 거 조 용선 지비도 제이다나 다 인rum고 고미키론디 와스트근 삼거 또 다 릉거 다링에 감마지기 오더래 지금 쇼롱 잔다 잠바츠 회나 다리가 지 샤와 깡 접나라는 셈땅 접단디 셈 연롱 와란 등등의 막도 제면 셈때 나토금 춥자데 그 랑아다리 되네 지 등은 잠은 잡기 기우 다리가 단네 메반을 티모 창조교 티명아 다리가 되네 셈네비 탑타마제고인데.
And now the ninth and final mode of placement is referred to as maintaining evenness in meditative absorption. And this comes about through now having achieved total familiarity with the practice. So it means that the meditator is able to just rest in meditation indefinitely. This is where we hear of the accounts of practitioners who are actually resting in meditation for a year or for a month or for extended periods of time without even getting up from their seat. In short, it means that the mind becomes exceedingly peaceful, because that is the mind's own nature. It is now being sustained. And so that capacity to sustain that nature can occur indefinitely. And with this state of total familiarity, that meditator can apply that to whatever they're doing, so that their mind is completely focused in its nature without being disturbed by conceptual proliferations.
다때 공도 제가 샤르쇼고 르네가 쳤나 하장 쩍체위 세운에 비탑을 거즈이 망거 남바 거송을 노더리 대나 키르남베 데고아 럭디즈 송요네 당 맨나양 당 강타리양나 상통 음악 공고네나 랑가 지금 득사다 디모체가 키르모 종이 디모 쉐르곤르다 데나 테스타비 야 직타비양 못되고 강타리양 키르남비 다리가 다 랑가 득당 더타비 키르용어다나 응차가 냠다 회나 nga양 우마이나 지나랑 상통 공기도 그 탕탕온 내급나요 말에 그 지미 내급나다 때야 총제다 담녀랑 책이 다리 따티 리기 남저 따르다나 되니 셈 랑가 다리가 셈 라타게다나 셈 내급서 내가 저게다나 그 랑랑 소소 다리가 대체직도 상통 그 우공탕 강용으로 촉거네나 랑랑 그 냠버 저게다나 종즈 때되나 그 양의 책이 지금 차트 종즈 요 노터가 마티엔.
So in the Eastern Buddhist teachings, these 9 modes of placement are very well known, very common and well known and practiced widely. I'm not sure whether you have heard them before or not, or know of them, but in my personal opinion, I feel that it is necessary to know them and to apply them in a qualified way. This has been just a brief introduction as to what they are and how they function in terms of accomplishing contemplative awareness. So it means that really to be able to meditate, if one knows these techniques, then that can be accomplished. And so I would like to just take a moment for all of us to try to sit and rest in mind's nature. So just position yourself and just be comfortable. You don't have to be in a specific posture. To be comfortable and let your mind rest peacefully in its nature.
와야 다 대롱 디츠 통통서 연 말은 세컨드 저네 득도냐는 말을 제만 어떻게 디 샤티오 그런가 만만 봐 다롱에 측각 저니즈도 딱 공도 지와타들 카르테 셈도 야하즈더 나르타만 법지 잔제나 랑근 소아 데모르티 포즈다나 대전도는 지 냥돈다 남바즈도 요건 말에 당선 셈 라와 마토파 강석 탐치 그 자선 나나양 지 르뇽찬 자만라다나 대전도 코릭 데라양나 지금 못대와다리가 도르식 디몬자만자 모즈도 정거요너레 대인네 나다레 응원기 좀 돌아서 버거갑나 생왕도 마저나 다리가 릉거돈야 만접나 양긴 돈 깔란적 송원너레 대인나다리 지마 남바츠지 셈도 진짜 하즈 용교 타 존게도 되네 치가치오 그 송어가.
We have but a very short time here today to share this information. to conclude, in terms of my own speech, I wanted to re-emphasize the fact that we all are looking for peace and well-being. And this will come about by mastering your own mind. And in doing so, this will bring you harmony and good relationships with your loved ones, your extended family, your workplace, all relationships that you have in life, whatever it may be, with whomever and wherever. And if this is not being emphasized, then it's hard to say that this is what's going to come about. And put aside being able to accomplish your own purpose. If you can't even do that, how will you be able to be of benefit to others?
다 대랑 네 정리를 কর때 디바즈도 샤너레 셔나 다리가 다 정리 코나가 되네 지금 타라 양덕다는 디모 톱톱고 요는 말에 다롱 다리 함통 당메도 비 시름데 메기 잔즈기나 랑커거 단 직된 거 지금 상당 양덕대 기르거나 기르까 몬즈인레 강타리 양나 다 가서 되는 그 디츠다 때나 되네 지금 조아미르가 양 지금 대화 되네 능가 항작 지 깔아강참 용거용제 되니나 데가 상당 거 다지 ngotchu zerkona de pa chanzik de te yin that touch.
And so this is also referred to as shamatha meditation or tranquil stillness, which is accompanied by true seeing or vipassana, where one is able to look into the true nature of reality. But the tranquil stillness meditation is a way to calm and sustain the mind's nature while still in the world. And for any individual who is able to accomplish this, they're going to eliminate any strife or unhappiness through that very process. And so that is the tremendous value of achieving contemplative awareness meditation.
다 직던데 카르농 것을 zerkona raga 그 ngatsu terang 그 조샬람 제티 맘제나 마탄다 강타리 양나 단더yok 넘버 2나 파르치아다 랑랑아 첨야요너레 야르크비양요너레 자상야요너레 텐디 상통검나 세미나르 웹탑너레 레타나 당선 잠봉랑도 삼롱타나 테니지 쇼소소나 테니 캡처라 다 가서 데려가 사ringer다 니모츠고이나 녀다리가 추초 다 동청 몽어다는 잠봉랑거 되게 멋진 거 콩수요너레다 옛나야나 랑라수저 게르크메다나 하천 냠토바 몽요인지 단도 소이나 되게 그러나 아메리키 되게 롭자 치문도 소 기르근다나 롭만 가리게 단도 문도도 지 인rumу 와르다는 데네 삽쇼고 되게 년치리 있지잖지나 되게 덴저레 건거 타게 요호 말에는 장롱 건데 또 크르시고 그제이단 멋적친 몽어근데 또나 셰콘제 대랑 잉우이나야 ngātsu mērē zhīndā yāng nā mē yīmbī chāni līngiñ zhī yōkōnzhē tā yī nē nā jī khūng nāmbā jī māngu wī rōwa mī tā tōp tāng dā wāng tāng dā tsū tā rī gā tēnī yīrdē yāng tāg zhī dā nā rāmnyam yāng tāg bā zhī gā tōy chē tā ngātsu mē tsāngmā gā nē nā tēnī zāmbō lāng nā dā nā jī tā ndikṣā rā nā mē nā yōsā yir nā mē nī zhī zhī kōn wā rī ndikṣā yir nā mē nī yōsā rā nā mē nī zhī tī mō mō zhī dā nā yōkōnzhē ndā tsō jī 탑 강들 그거 거는 야급 소소다 뭐라는 거고요. 마오나 지 되니 지금 득사요는 그다나 대비전도 땡사요는 그 다다 나추 뭐 참에다리 좀밥시기다 하장 가르치가 삼거.
And I also wanted to mention that in as much as we are able to enjoy the safety and security of living in a safe country that provides for us, and with the comfort and support of our family and associates. If we think about the condition of the world and many hundreds and thousands of human beings who do not have these simple, basic human dignities, that it seems to me, and of course all we have to do is listen to the news to learn about all of the refugees and those who are stateless. It seems to me that we all need to think about what we can do to help this kind of circumstance, to alleviate this kind of suffering, which seems to be getting worse and worse in our world today. So to have a broader scope, which includes service to humanity and the uplifting of the planet in terms of altruistic intentions, so that all living beings can have the basic human dignity that we ourselves are actually enjoying every moment of each day, so that all human beings can have comfort and reasonable lives, which is what everyone would want and wish for. And so I'd like to encourage all of us, those who are teaching and who are in positions to inspire others to think about these things, and those who are studying and learning to become people who can contribute to this world, to try harder to remember all living beings in this world of ours so that we can all become more equal.
ngama di Thailand la so bar yarkum gare sonin dar yarkum gare gati chogum thaka chakana teni rangan rosaktan ne men ne gni de da timor de capturwa hachang mo dari mtsik chik de ranga dari chokan chig na timor kirkiyo ne yak da tangsang na barmana ya mo de chlo nigya yarmar dari timo de capturwa zer kona daga rawa me chamon boyonje zamulangar tana mo yoti teni huirna atsuina 지금 머리ring 오고요나 그 니타다 싸움록당 고지즈다나 랩큐르실 고지즈 랩 삼고요 또이나 남바츠 다리가 teni 싸움돈 곰비 팀냠스 장롱 그 데르득데라 야 싸움록당로 가전치.
For myself, when I went to Southeast Asia, to Thailand, and was touring in countries in that area, I was astounded to find the plight of the refugees out of Cambodia, where some of the families of refugees who were stateless had been in that kind of a predicament, living in boats on the water and eating only fish that they could get from the boats for an entire family's generation. They had no place to go back to and no place to land, basically. They're just stuck in between, stateless. And there were some 200,000 of those kinds of refugees, at least, that I encountered when I went there. And so this kind of thing, it may go unnoticed, but that can't continue to be. We have to think more about how we can contribute to protect our fellow human beings on this planet. And so, of course, meditating so that you can master your own mind, but with the altruistic intention to do your best to always bring this kind of happiness and capacity to every being in this world of ours.
Gogdo chwa shekida zu di yeo lobchaga girgindan lomachaga zu shigida. Teni chwa da yinji dan da work kalamni da da yamni na da landepyo te yana kari ni gertan ka da landepyo yin.
So now we'll take some time for Q&A, questions and answers, which you can pass the mic and you can state your question clearly in English, and that'll be translated to me in Tibetan, and I'll give my answer.